Hello there, everybody. I am Joe List, and you are now listening to Mindful Metal Jacket. And that is something that makes me feel good that you're listening. I hope you're listening. If you're not listening, you're not hearing this. So you are listening. Oh, I'm stupid. But that's okay because I accept myself. I should start this over, but I've already started over 3 times. I should do an album of Mindful Metal Jacket intro outtakes. Or maybe I'll do a Patreon of just the failed introductions. I'm sticking with this one, everybody. I'm not taking it back. Anyway, I lost my buttery intro voice. Hi there. Take this moment to relax, renew, and ask yourself right now, what is wrong right now? And if you're honest with yourself, the answer is probably nothing. It's all just worry and anxiety. And right now you're fine, whether you're driving or walking or sitting or having sex with your neighbor or a family member. You're just fine. Well, if you're having sex with a family member, something could be wrong. Anyways, the point is, take a moment, breathe, relax, enjoy yourself. You're alive in this moment. You won't be alive forever, but you are alive right now. And the earth is still spinning, and there's still air to breathe, and people love you. Maybe a few people, maybe a lot of people, but somebody loves you and you love somebody. So accept yourself and enjoy this podcast. And I think you will enjoy this podcast because it's one of my favorite ones that I've done. I never like to rank them or say it's the funniest because I don't want to hurt the feelings of other people that are guests or have been guests and do listen. You know, Steve Rogers, he's a comedian. He's sensitive. He listens to the show and has been on the show. So I don't want him to hear that Ian Fidance was the best guest and then he'll sink into a depression. I love you, Steve. Anyways, this week's episode is way better than the Steve Rogers episode. It is Ian Fidance, comedian extraordinaire. Hopefully you know Ian. I'm sure a lot of you do. He is a fantastic comedian and a wonderful man and somebody that I love talking to. He's one of those guys in comedy. There's a lot of people, you know, if you're sitting at the cellar table and you see someone coming up to the table, you go, ah, shit. Or you just go, oh, there's that guy. Ian is one of those guys you go, great, excellent, Ian, perfect. Let him get in here. He never makes a hang worse, makes the hang better. And if you see him on a lineup, you're like, okay, cool, I got him. So that's the kind of guy he is to me. And but he's also a deeply troubled guy, and we talk about that quite a bit. We get into our alcoholism, and we talk a lot about mental health, of course, about the drugs we've taken and the effects of those drugs, prescribed drugs, I mean. And yeah, we talk a little bit about accepting ourselves and all those things. And it was really just a great conversation that I got a lot out of. I think he got quite a bit out of it, and I hope that you will too. Hopefully you identify with it, with some of it or all of it. And I think a lot of people will. So just an excellent conversation. I just finished it, so I'm still in that mode of like, wow, that was great. I'm dealing with some reflux right now, so I might have to cough. It's not COVID. Don't worry. Anyways, I'm sure I'll be fine. Remember Ferris Bueller when he's playing the piano? Cough. Hey, folks, if you happen to be in Jersey City, I'm doing a show there at a place called The Pet Shop Monday, October 19th in Jersey City. Come on out to that. I think should be a good show. It's outdoors, so safety first. And I think that's pretty much it for my dates right now. Most things have been canceled, but I'm going to work on getting some more soon. So Jersey City, I know that's not many of you, but if you're around, Pet Shop on Monday. And I also want to encourage you to tell some people about the podcast. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Give it a nice review. There's so many kind reviews. It's really quite touching. And I appreciate all the kind emails and messages. And promote the podcast a little bit. Put it on your Insta story. Put it on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Tell some friends. And that's the only way a podcast can really grow, is if the people that like it spread the word. So please spread the word around. Tell some friends and pay it forward, whatever. And and also I wanted to mention that my album, I Hate Myself, which is slightly different than the special, which is still on YouTube. You can stream that. Please share that while you're at it. The album comes out October 16th, which is this week, maybe? Maybe it's today. I don't even know the dates anymore. Oh, God, this is going too long. It's tomorrow. The album comes out tomorrow. You can pre-order it today, and that helps the algorithm or whatever. So pre-order the album, I Hate Myself. It'll be available wherever albums are available. That's enough promotion. Attraction rather than promotion. Anyways, I'm really excited about this conversation. Let me give you a nice quote. I read this the other day. Tara Brach, who's one of my OG Buddhist teachers that has brought me into the world of Buddhism and meditation. I love her. I recommend her books and podcasts. And this one, I think, kind of relates a little bit to what we talk about later in this conversation. Tara Brach said, "We're so used to presenting ourselves and getting approval according to our achievements that it's difficult to be authentic and trust that we'll be accepted just as we are." I struggle with that. Do you? Either way, something to think about and remember, and you're good enough. Be kind to yourself and enjoy this conversation with my friend, the wonderful, the delightful, the hilarious Ian Fidance. I'm recording. This is it. We're live. This is how every podcast is started. I'm like, okay, it's happening.
Go.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to have you on. I mean, when I think mental health pod, I think, let me get Ian in here. And
That's always good to hear, is when people are thinking about mental health. They're like, we got to get Ian in here to hear his perspective or check on him.
Yeah, I'm like, I got to save Ian. That's going to be something when the pod starts to dip. I'll get Ian in here and then I'll really...
Yeah, it'll kickstart it to a new level.
Yeah, give the folks a thrill.
Yeah.
So how are you doing? Tell me, so you told me off air, you had an incident last night, some drama.
I did. I had a little bit of drama. My cat is, he loves me a lot, and he's like always all over me. And, you want to talk mental health and psychology. Yeah, he's a bit needy, but also maybe I shouldn't have laid on the ground and put his food on my chest when he was a kitten so that he would associate his food with my love. So I am very much like, he's always like on me or whatever. But when I have people over, he gets scared as hell. He turns into like such a scaredy cat. He hides under and in the couch, like up here. And I had a friend over yesterday, and when they left, he ran out, and I don't know where he went, but I couldn't find him for like a couple hours. I'm like, man, he'll come out. And then at like 12:30 or 1, I heard crying, and he was stuck underneath my sink behind the baseboard. And he got in this hole like this big, and he couldn't get out. So I'm like holding onto his head, trying to pull him out. And I'm like, I think I might pull my cat's head off. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get this cat out of here. So I had to get a hammer and brace it in between the baseboard and like crank it out. And so I like knocked my kitchen cabinet out, and he came out, and then I put it back together. And I was telling you, I'm on Seroquel, which if you don't get 8 full 8 hours on it, you're like a fucking zombie. So I didn't get my full 8 hours. So I texted you this morning. I was like, please, I need to sleep for another hour or else I won't function.
So what is Seroquel? Is that a sleep aid? Is that anxiety? What is that?
Seroquel is like an antipsychotic. It's for people that are bipolar. And it is for people with OCD, bipolar, and it is like an anxiety medicine in a way. And I take it before I go to bed, like a half hour, and it helps calm my thoughts throughout the next day, which has been really wonderful lately. So
wait, so does it like not? I hear Quill. I think NyQuil. Does it like knock you out, or is it just?
Well, if you take it, it doesn't like knock me out. It just helps me go to sleep so that my head's not like racing and everything. And like, if you take a lot of it, you'll get knocked out. But he bumped my dosage up, and I don't like it because the next day it kind of makes me like groggy, and I got to talk to him about that. But yeah, it just kind of calms you down more. It doesn't knock you out like NyQuil. NyQuil like fucking hits you.
Right.
For me, I can like stay up and watch TV, which isn't good because I'm like, oh yeah, I have to go to sleep.
Right. So that's a big thing for you, not to like jump right in, but do you have that intrusive thoughts and all that shit? Like, I mean, that's essentially anxiety, but
yeah,
does that get worse for you when you're going to bed, or is it all day, sans medicine?
I mean, my head is always racing. And it's, scattered thoughts, ADHD, this, that, blah, 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 blah. And so I have a hard time concentrating on one thing, but, like negative thoughts can really come in and I can really attach myself to them because right. I think I've almost found a comfort in them sometimes. And so I'll glom onto them and they won't stop. And, I've like really like tried prayer, and I'm not good at meditation, but, like I found myself just like some nights just like praying, almost like scream praying so that my head would shut off and it just wouldn't stop. And the medication I found has been able to help alleviate that.
That's great. So what other medications have you tried? Like I was on Paxil years ago for a few years for like the same kind of thing, for horrendous anxiety and all that stuff. So I took Paxil for a long time.
Did it help?
I think so. I mean, it's like, it's hard to tell now. I mean, it was so long ago now. I mean, now it was 10 or 12 or 13 years ago. And it helped for me, like so much of the stuff for me. And I think there's different levels of struggling and illness and stuff. But for me, it helped. Just the most helpful thing was going to a therapist and a doctor being like, okay, you have general anxiety disorder and OCD and panic disorder. And for me, and I've shared this before, just hearing a diagnosis that this is something that happens to people was a huge help. Because I always have this thing that, or terminal uniqueness, we call it sometimes, but I have this thing of like, I thought I had Joe List disease. Like I have this crazy problem. Like I go to the doctor or a therapist and I'm like, listen to this. My fucking brain's crazy. And they're like, oh yeah, that's this thing. So that was a huge help. And then just the placebo effect of like, all right, this medicine's going to help. I think that helped, but it did help. But ultimately, I mean, first of all, I couldn't come on Paxil. I would be jerking off furiously for like 3 hours.
That's the worst. Is it like without antidepressants, you want to kill yourself, but then on antidepressants, you can't come, which also makes you want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
So you're like, fucked either way. And that happened to me on Zoloft. I, on like a high dosage, I like couldn't come. And one time I was, gonna have like an all day fuck fest with this girl, and we like planned it out. And I was like, all right, well, I want to last a long time. So I'm going to take my Zoloft. I'm going to take extra Zoloft as like, to make it so that I just can't come and I'll fuck her all day and she'll think I'm like king sex. And it just had the opposite effect. I couldn't get hard. And it was like so embarrassing. And we had to be like in the throes of passion. I'd be like, well, you see, I suffer from manic depressive disorder and I took extra medication because I wanted to last long. She was like, all right.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember hooking up with girls or my girlfriend at the time and just being like, yeah, just so you know, like I will not be coming. Right. It's like a thing. Because for me, mentally, even off the medication, and this is a whole different topic, a different bag of hammers here. I have like so much anxiety. I have like brain to penis fucking disconnect. Like it takes me like a half hour to piss sometimes because I'm just wow. I'm in my head, not a half hour, but several minutes, like 5-6 minutes, because I'm just in my head of like, oh wow, I can't piss. I'll start thinking about something. I'm like sitting there trying to piss, and instead I'm thinking about some conversation I had. And it's the same with sex, where like I'll get close to coming, and there's that thing in your head that's like, hey, you're about to come, and then I'm like, fuck, oh shit, and then it just is like I have to start over. But back then on Paxil, I remember like hooking up with women that got mad. Like they were like, what is this? Like, am I a piece of shit? Am I fat? And I'm like, no, I'm on drugs and I'm retarded. Don't worry.
I'm on drugs. Street drugs. Now let me put it in you without a condom. Come on. If you're on antidepressants and a condom, it's impossible to come a lot of times.
Yeah. And I was drinking then too. So it was like all of those.
Oh God. Yeah. And also drinking and antidepressants, they kind of cancel each other out.
Yeah, I was an idiot with that stuff. Like I remember it was like a fun bar trick to me to be taking my Paxil with a shot. Like I would be like, look at everybody, antidepressant. And then I would wash it down with like a Jaeger bomb. And then everyone's like, aren't you supposed to not do that? And I'm like, you got that right. And just a fucking idiot, you know? That's but great. So you did Zoloft. Did Zoloft help? Are you still taking Zoloft?
No, I've done everything. It's funny to step back and think like, oh, I've been on and off medication since I was 8 years old.
Wow.
That's like, my entire life. And it's kind of, and my mom, God bless her, would not make me take my medication all the time because, sometimes I would feel weird and she would be like, okay, well, don't take it. Only take it on the weekends or take it this time or, oh, you're feeling down here, take one. So she didn't really, I never took it as prescribed. So I was on top of being like, chemically imbalanced naturally. The chemicals I was putting in me were like constantly up and down, like in and out of my system. So it was always kind of like this, like, rubber band pull of these like moods and everything. And I never really knew like which was because I never associated my moods with the medication. I always just thought, oh, this is just the way I am. But a lot of it had to do with me being on and off these meds. So I've been on like a lot. Zoloft, I was on for a while, and Zoloft can trigger manic episodes. And the doctor increased my dose and it triggered like a pretty bad manic episode. And so I got off that, thankfully, and I've felt way better ever since. But I also, at the beginning of quarantine, I switched to Wellbutrin. And Wellbutrin can have, like severe side effects. And unfortunately, I experienced them, but I didn't know it. I just thought, yes, the world was like ending and pausing and everything in our industry shut down. And it was that whole question of like, who am I? What am I? But on top of that, I had this medication that was bringing me to like incredible lows and like really bad thoughts. And my ex was in Pakistan and I was missing her so much. And I would see her out of the corner of my eye, or I'd see her in the kitchen and be like, oh my God, like, I miss her so much. I'm seeing her around my apartment. And it turns out a large side effect of Wellbutrin is hallucinations. So I was just hallucinating. And I was like, wow, I'm really in love,
Holy shit. That's fucking
And dude, I was having these like insane night terrors of like, I would roll on my left side and I would feel as if someone was like right above me and I saw like it was like gnarly. And then it all started to make sense of like, oh shit, this is not just me. This is this medication. So then I switched. When I went back to Zoloft, they pumped that up. And I think it was like the switching that just did something.
Right. That's one of the things that's so hard with anxiety, depression, mental illness in general, is it's hard to decipher what's real, what's being caused by something, what's being caused by anxiety. Because certain things, you know, I'll have whatever it is, pains or ailments or illness. And I'm like, wait, is this real, or is this, am I creating this through anxiety because I'm fucking losing my mind? And so you have all those things. It's hard to decipher what's what.
Totally. And also with medication, it's really tough. Because all it takes, you have to just give it time. Because it has to wash through your body, it has to go into your blood system. And, you know, some medication, it's like, well, for the first week, you're going to be really, really groggy. And it's like, well, I have a job to do. I have things I have to do. And I'm like falling asleep at the wheel driving. And they're like, just hold out and then we'll see if it maybe will work. Like, what?
Right. Yeah, no, it's fucking weird. And that's how I felt with, Paxil. I think I felt like foggy. Again, I was drinking and taking it. So, and I wasn't able to come and all this stuff. And then I just started to get in my head of like, oh man, am I just another statistic? And do I really need this? And I had all that shit and started to try to do, you know, alternative stuff. And so I don't know. I'm still not sure, but now I'm not on drugs now, but, I had Xanax back in the day too, because I would have horrible panic attacks as well.
Wow. What was that like? Yeah, so, Xanax will really trick you. I'm panicking again.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was weird because what's the problem with that is, I mean, it's good. I'm not like anti-drug. It's good, but it allows you to not ever really deal with the panic, because if I'm like, I start to panic, I feel even a little bit, I take it and I'm like, woo. Yeah. And so I wasn't really dealing with what was causing the anxiety or the panic. And then I took, what's the other one? I always fucking lose what it's called. Shit, my friends. It's not Xanax, but it's another thing like Xanax.
Lithium?
No. That's a Nirvana song.
Klonopin.
Klonopin. Yeah, that's it. And my friend's girlfriend was like obsessed with Klonopin. So I would take those like leisurely when I was still drinking and using. And I remember going to like a play on Klonopin and being like fucking out of my mind. I was like, this is insane. But it almost was helpful because I'm like, I'm not that mentally ill. If this drug is helpful to somebody, I mean, this is like, I remember like falling asleep in the middle of like Billy Elliot, just being like, just like passing out. So, I mean, some of those drugs are fucking hardcore.
Yeah, it's a lot. And again, like you have to be on it for a while. So you're just, it really, really fucks you up of like, you know, again, like questioning like what is real, what is my real emotion, and what is a byproduct of the medication, and what is just a general overreaction, or is it just I have a chemical imbalance, and then you put this medication in you and you have these adverse side effects and you're supposed to stick with them for a while. It doesn't work. Okay, well, let's try this. And then you start over, you know. It's like, you know, for women, there's like, what is it, like 1,500 different forms of birth control, or like forms of the pill, and you go on, it just destroys your system, kills your insides for like 6 months, and like, okay, you're still feeling discomfort, let's start the process over again. You're like, what the fuck, this is making me insane.
Yeah, some of those birth control can make you into a complete fucking lunatic.
Oh dude, I know, and it's brutal. And then you get off it, and then you have to go back on another, and like, you don't know if it's her or if it's the medication, or, you know, it sucks.
Yeah.
Having to deal with that as a man.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard for us, but then for guys like us, you're like, she hates me, I'm a piece of shit, she never loved me. And meanwhile, she's just having a psychotic episode because of birth control. I know. And it's so hard to be like, you know, everything's going to be okay. No, it's not. You're like, okay, I don't think it will be. I don't know. The things don't get better. You're like, oh, what do I do? Is this you? Is this going to be this way forever? You know, that's why it's best to just pull out and come on their faces. Am I right, folks?
Say, yeah, that's why anal's the way to go.
Yeah, you got to do anal.
The Lord's birth control.
We went off the rails there for a second, but we made some good points, I think, about the anal and the face coming.
Yes.
We try to keep it light here. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. You're a Philly guy, outside Philly. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm from Delaware.
Oh, that's right. I knew that because I think we just talked about this recently. Was it you and I that was talking about Delaware?
Were we?
I think I was talking to someone else from Delaware.
Who?
Who the fuck was I?
Who the fuck else is from Delaware? Me. I'm the only one. I'm unique.
No, it wasn't you. I think it was a woman. Who the fuck was it? Oh God! Now I'm gonna have to think of this. But it was somebody. I was talking about Delaware, the first state.
Huh.
Oh shit! Well, so this is something I'll figure out later off air. I realize we're entertaining people right now.
It'll stop stressing you out.
I'll think of it at some point. I'll plug it in post, or I'll call you with it. But,
perfect.
So you grew up in Delaware, and you said you started being on meds when you were 8. So something haywire must have been going on early. What was that? Can we talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I was always like super hyperactive. The first time I went on meds, I was like 7, and I went to see like a ADHD specialist, and the doctor gave me medication, and it just totally like just made me totally zonked out, and I wasn't hyper. I wasn't talkative anymore. And my dad took the medication and like flushed it down the toilet and was like, rather my son bounce off the walls and be, annoying than not be himself and just be kind of like a sad robot. And then he ended up dying like a year later. And like a couple months after he died, my mom was like, hello, specialist. Could we find some of those meds that we put down the toilet, please?
Right.
And so then I got on medication after that. But I also, at the same time, I didn't start taking medication for depression yet, but I was putting like different forms of like therapy and everything. And then through that, they were like, we should try him on depression meds or anxiety meds. So then that's when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, that's when it kind of started to go into trying like other medications.
Right. Now, do you think about, has been discussion with your mother or whatever about like the idea that your father had of like, fuck meds, he'll be hyper or whatever? Because that sounds like maybe the hyper was just sort of hereditary, genetic. Mm-hmm. And then that's who you are. Right. As a hyper guy. And then you start messing with the pills or anything. Is there, do you spend time thinking like, what would have been like if, I hadn't gone back to the medicine or what? My mom, I really hated the ADHD medicine. And to my mom's credit, she was like, only take it, like the doctors were like, take it in the morning, then take one at night, or like take one a day, blah, blah, blah. And my mom would be like, all right, don't take it on the weekends, only take it when you have to do your homework or, and so my mom kind of was like really kind in terms of like she saw that I didn't like it, but she was also getting complaints from, school and teachers. So she's like, I got to meet you halfway. Right. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with that have been on medication of like, I know for me, I do it with everything. I do it with working out. The second you tell me I look good, I'm like, I don't have to go to the gym. I do it with sobriety. Once I get everything back that I lost, I'm like, no, I can drink again, and with medication, it's like, I've been feeling good for a while. I should stop taking my meds, Right. And it is kind of, I understand it's like a nice thing, but if you do tell people you're like struggling or you're going through something, the first thing they ask is like, are you still taking your meds? And I get it, but it kind of feels like insulting that they don't trust like you. And they think that, it's this nefarious thing that's going on inside of your head that if you don't take your meds, you're a complete, mess, which can be true. And I guess it's out of concern, but it is kind of like, yeah, I'm still taking them. I'm still fucked up. All right. Right. Yeah. That's a tricky thing. So like, it's a hard thing to deal with because sometimes you want to just talk about what you're going through, and people's natural thing kindly is to try to help, but sometimes you're like, it's hard to take the help, or you have that feeling of like, I've already thought of that, you fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And so it is this weird balance sometimes where it's hard to decipher whether someone's asking for help or if they're just trying to get something off their chest. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a human thing to try to be like, well, have you tried this?
Mhm.
Maybe this. I mean, there's countless people in my life, throughout my life, since I was a kid, were like, you gotta relax.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's what I'm having trouble with. You see,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, and I'm sure this analogy's been made, but it's almost like being like, yeah, I have cancer, and they're like, you got to try to not have cancer.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Can you just close your eyes and just think about not having cancer?
Yeah, so it is tricky, and so where are you with that? Are there certain people you reach out for, like, I need your help, and are there some people that you just talk to vent, or what is your reaching out kind of
Like my
situation with that?
support network?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I have a I'm I've been going through like a really gnarly breakup. And so I've had one friend that's been like really, really kind. And I really helped him through like his depths of hell years ago. So this is, I'm cashing in my be there for me all the time card.
Sure.
But I just like friends from AA that I think that we both know that are comics as well, that I've grown close to over the years, that have become like support systems for me and I for them. And I the quarantine's been weird, and that I started to reconnect with like older friends. I don't know if you did this, but I started making amends for things that have never mattered. Like I emailed someone because I walked out of their set one night when I told them I was going to watch their act. And I was like, look, I'm so sorry. I was really tired. I know it was, your first set at the Cellar, but I just had to go home. It was late at night. Please forgive me. They're like, hey, I don't remember that. Really forgive yourself. I was like,
Oh, that's
okay.
nice.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I've done so many amends like that where the person's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And you're like, oh, I've been carrying this for 9 years thinking that
yeah,
you hate me or that I'm a piece of shit.
totally.
And people are like, I don't remember that at all. But
Yeah.
I've made a couple big amends during quarantine. And it was great and really helpful, because it's almost like we've had so much downtime, and then it is a struggle with mental health and stuff to be
Mhm.
alone in the house, or not alone, I'm with my wife, but not walking around, not seeing people, not traveling. And so there is a lot of stuff that you're like, there's so many hours that you're like, I should work on that script I always wanted to write. I should write a book. And there's also like, you're like, oh, I also should apologize for ruining that person's wedding 10 years ago that I've been sitting on. I just never did it.
Yeah.
So I've done a few of those, like really big ones. And it really does feel good. Like if you're listening at home, I mean, even if you don't have a drinking problem or anxiety, and you did something at some point, it really does help to reach out to those people. And in my
Oh,
experience, most of those people are
totally.
very receptive. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, self-reflection is always good, especially, like kind of thinking like what your part and your role in things is, and always be willing to make the amends and to admit when you're wrong. I fall into a category sometimes where I will obsessively want to make the amend immediately and be like, do you forgive me? Come on, let's go back. Just forget it. Come on. Things are good. Everything's fine, and that's not really how amends works. You make it and you leave it, the ball in their court, and you accept whatever response they have. And mine is like, well, I'm saying I'm sorry, but why can't we just go back to normal? What's the matter here?
Yeah. No, that happens a lot. And there was one thing I made an amends for with a woman, and you know she ended up writing like, I know you're a good guy and I appreciate this and I've always liked you, but there was the part that was like, yeah, that was horrible and it fucking fucked me up and it sucked and you suck. And there is part of you that's like, well, you could have left that out. Jeez. You're like, what is this? Like there is like overall you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did this and I'm glad we worked it out and everything feels good, but you're also like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like, I'm trying to apologize, and you gotta tell me that it did
Yeah.
hurt your feelings. What is
Well,
this?
and when they're well within their right to be like, no, I was really hurt by the actions you took. And you're like, no, that was a long time ago. Just tell me I'm good and I'm forgiving. Please, can we do this?
Yeah, exactly. So it is, but it is like a powerful feeling to really apologize to somebody, and it's hard not to call people that you want to apologize to you and be like, hey, why don't you do that? But
Oh yeah. Well,
that's
I have a thing where I convince myself that everyone hates me and I'm like a bad friend, and because I isolate a lot, and I wonder if it can be seen as being like a dick or like abandoning people, which I guess it can be, but I also like slink away a lot. Like I think like again, like, going back to, me losing my dad at such a young age, I really become intensely close with people kind of quick. And then I move away because I feel like that's my way of being like, all right, well, I'm owning the abandonment. You can't leave me. I'm leaving you. And I'm just going to slink away. And then, when I see, I'll see, and we'll be pals. But, I kind of, make myself in charge of the one who walks away. And I don't think that that's a good characteristic in friendships or business relationships or anything. But I really kind of isolate away from things a lot. So I'm trying to reconnect those ties that have been severed, or just like showing up more, or, I've really, especially, I've been single in a very long time. And so I'm trying to be not, I'm trying to be, I'm trying to, whenever I'm in a relationship, I'm always like, well, I'll just be with this person. I don't have to go out and be with my friends, or I don't have to. So I'm like making plans with friends and like trying to keep them, and like trying to do fun activities, and trying to, stay busy so I don't like sit and dwell and everything. And I'm trying to like show up, like I'm hitting up random friends, like, do you need help with anything? Are you moving? And they're like,
right.
On your meds?
Right. But no, that's great. And it's funny. I mean, I don't know if you have this. First of all, I have the thing too of just thinking everybody hates me all the time, and then I'm a fuck up and I suck.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a constant battle, but oh fuck, I forget what I was going to say. Oh, that's what I was going to say is, do you have the thing that's like, I have all these, like, my instincts are all counterintuitive. My instincts are to like, let's stay home. I'm like, it's happened last week where I'm like, I got nothing on the schedule today. This is great. I'm going to sit and watch baseball all day. It's playoffs and there's games all day. And I'm like, this will be great. And I sit there for like 1 minute. I'm like, I should be working on my career. Let me send an Instagram. Let me tweet. Let me do this. Let me read. And then the days where I'm like, shit, I got a bunch of stuff I got to do this podcast and I got to do that podcast. And then I got to go pick up whatever. Those days I'm way better. I'm actually, my instinct is to be like isolate and keep as few things on the schedule as possible. But ultimately I'm better when I'm doing things because I'm outside of my head, when I'm running errands, or particularly when I'm interacting with people.
Yes. I found that I got the most work done, like administrative and even like deadline stuff, walking to the subway, or like on the subway, or in between things where it's like a time crunch when I have no choice but to like get it done. But when I have ultimate free time, that's when, I'm in a bad spot. Idle hands are the devil's play toys. What's it called? Play thing?
I don't know.
Work at the devil.
Devil's advocate. I'm not sure.
Devil in the donut. I don't know, but I have to stay busy, or else I can really fall prisoner to my own mind.
Yeah, same, 100%. And it just works better for, I think, people like us to be interacting, and that's part of the problem with lockdown and all that shit. Is there is less socializing, and it does scare me as we get to when it's colder and you can't be outside, and it does become a little more dangerous or whatever, because even doing just sets around town, like at the cellar, like we'll both be at the cellar, like you'd just be forced to be hanging out with people, not forced, but like you're sitting at the table and then here comes a new person, here comes this person, and you're meeting a diverse group of people, people that aren't even your friends. You kind of have to be like, what do you know about this? What do you think about? And they're taking that aspect out of it is definitely difficult because it does send you back into your head more often. When you're by yourself, you end up having conversations, and for me, I think probably you too, like arguments in my head, and I try so hard to be mindful. I have all these mindfulness reminders, and I'm a meditator and all this stuff. But I'm still like, I'll go into a shower being like, all right, I'm going to really be mindful and feel the water and enjoy the shower. It's one of the highlights of my day. And within 30 seconds, I'm like, well, what about that time you said this? And that's what I'm doing in the shower. I'm like,
Yeah.
remember when I was babysitting and you fucking, or whatever. And
oh, last night I was having a conversation that ended in quite a lot of tears in the shower last night of just like replaying. And it's sometimes my shower conversations are not even like arguments of me being like, no, that's not true. It's like me preemptively being like, I should have blah, blah, I really live in like shoulda, wouldas a lot, shoulda, woulda, couldas. And I think I've really spent so much time living in the past. I used to relive my past all the time in my head, especially like, I had this thing with guilt for an incredibly, incredibly long period of time where I felt like I could have stopped my dad from dying. And I lived in that for years and years and years, and just replaying things in my head. And especially like even living in the memory of him being alive, like playing thoughts and memories like movies, to where I wasn't living in the present. And then I'll worry about the future, especially with quarantine and everything. It's just been like the future. What the fuck is going to happen? What the fuck is going to happen? And I'm not living in the present at all. And I've always had a hard time being in the present. And I'll get made fun of by friends sometimes because my leg shakes. And it has to do with like nerves or nervousness, or when I'll start getting anxiety about the future, I'll like shake or whatever. And it's like a physical tick that I've had to be told by like strangers before, like, hey, can you stop? Like you're shaking this like table or whatever. And I'm like,
yeah.
Stepping outside of myself to see someone visibly shaking all the time is like pretty jarring. And I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I'm like vibrating and shit. And I don't even notice it. And people are like, man, you're kind of like a spaz. I'm like, really? What's wrong with you? I don't see that. Like I was the last one to find out that I was like weird. Like I thought everyone else was like this, and it's very much not true.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I have like physical tics where like especially when doing podcasts when I'm stressed, I have like hard blinks where I'm like blinking like this. And I'm thinking about it even during the podcast, and I'm like, the YouTube people are going to be like, what's up with his eyes? This guy's crazy. And I've had people say it to me, like they've watched set, like my first live at Gotham set. The whole time I'm like doing these OCD tics, and people are like, that was my first experience of like, and this is kind of like pre-social media, it feels, or before I was into social media, where all these people I would walk up to would be like, yeah, that was good, but what was with the blinking? That was fucking weird. And you're like, I don't know, I'm freaking out. Fuck off. And it is hard because then you're like consciously trying to like, keep your legs still, or I'm like trying to keep my eyes open and blink. I'm like, how long does a normal blink last? And and I have like a OCD thing now where I'm like, I flex my left arm that nobody can even see it, but like my arm is like sore by the end of the day because I'm just subconsciously flexing my arm constantly because of stress and anxiety. And a lot of it is these fucking times and political unrest, which I'm always having like political arguments in my head and all this shit. So
mine's chain smoking as well. Like smoking is, I've convinced myself it relieves stress and anxiety, So I mean, during quarantine, I got up to like 2 packs a day of just like nonstop. And I'm like literally living in prison. I work out in my room, and then I go outside and I walk up and down my block like it's the yard. And then I come back inside, and it's like, I got to get the fuck out of this 2-block radius or else I'm going to go insane. And that's why I love my bicycle so much, because that for me has become, it's the closest thing I have to meditation, because it truly can be a spirit, like I have heard, I have such a hard time with meditation, and I really admire the fact that that's such a big part of your life in recovery. And I really, and it's such a lazy thing of like, well, I wish I could be good at it. It's like, well, dummy, you can be, just do it.
Right.
It's like half my life is, well, I wish this. It's like, no, you could do that in a heartbeat. Just fucking do it, dude. But the bike, and I've heard meditation, like, it's not always, but there's some parts of it that you're like locked in and you just feel this spirituality and this presence and whatever. And I feel that way on the bike sometimes, where I'll just lock into this moment, or something will be synced up perfectly, especially like the music I listen to. Like I'll turn a corner and it pops right at the perfect part of the song, and the sun's shining down and the wind is on my face. I'm like, this is fucking God. Like this is God's beauty shining upon me. And I have to be centered, or else in the moment, or else I'll get hit by a fucking car, So it forces me to be centered in the moment, reflective at the same time in a way, and present, and also grateful. So the bike for me has become this centerpiece in my life that keeps me together.
Yeah, I mean, that essentially is meditation. I mean, there's people have the idea of meditation of like sitting, and that's what I do and stuff. But like, there's a sitting meditation and going, oh, but I mean, meditation essentially is just sort of accepting the present and being present. So you can do that.
So I meditate.
You're meditating. Yeah, you're meditating on a bicycle. Or it's meditative at the very least. But
yes,
I've had the same feeling, and music for me is a huge help too, because I have serious problems connecting with feelings and emotion, and connecting with reality even. And sometimes, like, I've gone on hikes.
The whole, is this real? Am I living in reality? Some people being like, you perceive reality different. I'm like, what?
Right. But I've had moments where I'm like hiking by myself or walking and have just the right song, and it hits that emotion and brings you back to the thing you want to be connected to.
Yes.
And I'm so self-critical that I'll say it to my therapist. I'm like, I can't even feel feelings unless I'm listening to Springsteen. And he's like,
right.
So what? Okay, put on Springsteen. You're like, oh, that's okay. Like, I always have this fear that I'm like, am I doing it right? Like similarly, where I'm like, your biking is meditation. I have the same thing where I'm like, is it okay that I feel meditative, but I'm slouched a little?
Right.
Like, is
right.
it okay
that's what, and I don't know if you can relate. I don't know how like religious or tied to, did you grow up Catholic?
No, my father's Catholic, but we had no religious.
Got you. Anything. Well, I, and that's one thing I love about, I don't know if we can mention it, but programs of recovery is the idea that like your God or your spiritual connection does not have to be what you once thought it was. So I always thought like prayer had to be on your knees in the prayer position. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray to you today. You know what I mean? And so when I would talk to God or whatever, is this okay? Am I clocking in with you properly? And I've really gotten away from my contact with God, but the desperation in places I've been in the past couple months have really kind of kicked my ass into making me have no choice but to talk to whatever is out there. So in a way, I'm grateful for kind of the shit that I've been through in the past couple months. But I think that whole thing of, am I doing this right? Am I praying okay? Am I talking to a being outside of myself in the proper way? And it's like, well, it's up to you.
Right, sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, and I feel that gratitude feeling is like of going through shit. Like, and I think about that all the time with drinking. I'm like, it was so miserable to be such a fucking drunk maniac and blacking out, right, and fucking up relationships and career and all that stuff and just feeling like shit. But it makes me so grateful that I went through it now, because I'm like, oh, right, I have this thing to compare my life to of like, this is what it would be like. And I talk about that all the time and think about it all the time, where I'm like, I'll go through a weekend on the road or a quarantine, or I'm sick or have anxiety. And I'm like, imagine how much worse it would be if I was drinking. If like, you know what I mean? Well,
that's the crazy thing is when I was drinking, I was like, God damn it. If I could just shut out the world and have nothing to do and just fucking bottle of vodka on my knee, rocking chair, all the free time in the world, I would finally be happy. And then now that that's an option, I was like, I would be in hell.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying right off the bat when this started happening, the pandemic, whatever, lockdown, whatever we call it. I was like, I said it to Sarah, who's sober as well, obviously. Maybe it's not obvious, but she is. And I'm saying obviously because you know that. But right away, I was like, this is like all of our fucking prayers being answered when we were drinking.
Yes.
That's like the idea. Like, that's when the only time I was happy when I was drinking was like, I would go on vacation with my family up in Maine. And I was like, all right, I'm away from comedy. I'm away from show business. No one in my business is up here. And my family, they're stuck with me. So even if I black out and break everything in the house, which I did, I was like, they're going to have to still love me. Mm-hmm. So I felt protected. And that's what this kind of feels like. We were like, all right, we can't leave. We can't work. We have all day. And I would 100% be drinking at fucking 9:30 in the morning until 10 at night or whenever I passed out. Sure. But there is even part of me like that alcoholic thinking of like, fuck, why couldn't have this happened 9 years ago?
Yeah.
I would have ripped it up.
Yeah. I know. Well, I was like, man, I kind of made my own little quarantines every time I got fired from a job, before it got so bad, I had to like go away, so it was like, I had bits and pieces of my own homegrown quarantine, but yeah. It was never, and it always ended in desperation and in crawling on my knees to take that substance away from me, and I really, because I hadn't gone to, are you allowed to mention?
I don't care.
I had gotten away from Alcoholics Anonymous and it really saved my life. I mean, I've lived in halfway houses. I've worked in halfway houses. I have been in detoxes and hospital, all as a result of my drinking. And I've been so far removed from a drink that I've convinced myself that I don't need to go to those things anymore. And it's very not true. But I really admire the people that are like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic, and I just have to be grateful I didn't put a drug or drink in my body. I'm 35 years sober, and every day is a gift. And my sobriety, I'm just so grateful. I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's 35 years. Of course you didn't put a drug or drink in your body in the morning, Kevin,
Right.
And I feel like I've been so far removed, finding that gratitude for being sober. It's there, but being on fire with it is not. And I'd love to get back to that. But I've also joined another program in recovery of SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. And I feel much closer to that and have found an identification with the fellows in that's hit me so much harder than AA has recently, that's the place I go where I'm like, it's been such and such days sober of not being in contact with my qualifier that I am just so grateful. And like, that's like the sting that I'm dealing with is the thing that burnt my ass and put me back into the rooms. But I really admire just hearing that gratitude and that, being completely on fire with the program of recovery. I just admire it so much.
Yeah, well, it is important. I was just talking about this with Sarah too. Like, it is important to remember that we are those things still. So like, we went up to hang out with my family for the weekend and we worked and we just went haywire. We ate, McDonald's and we ate all kinds of fucking candy and I was smoking cigars. And we were kind of just like, oh, I feel like shit. And what are we doing? And it is like, I had to remind myself and her that like, well, we are fucking alcoholics, that we just haven't drank in years. But like my instinct is to.
And that behavior is still there.
Yeah. My instinct, my natural instinct, my first thought when hanging out with family or stress is like, let's drink 40 Captain and Cokes and just be fucking, well, fuck all you motherfuckers. And so I'm like, if I got to eat McDonald's a couple times, every few weeks to not get drunk and try to fuck my aunt or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, just, get through it and it's fine. Because you do have to stay in contact with the fact that we're fucking lunatics. We're completely out of our minds.
Totally. Yeah. And it's such a fun phrase of like, I came from a drinking, stayed from a thinking.
Right,
It's like
right.
so true, and I think that's why I would relapse all the time, because it's almost like a get out of jail free card of like, oh, you're not drinking. Oh my God, you're so great for you. You're such a good person, and it would be like that little pat on the back of like feeling good. And, you start to get little things back that makes your life so much better because you thought you'd never get them. So I would relapse to almost I wouldn't relapse to feel better, but coming back into the rooms off a relapse would make me feel better immediately, because it was like, oh, I put down booze, everything's better now. Oh, I put down the drink, things are better now. I'm not drinking, things are amazing. And it's like that would then die off to the point where I would have to relapse again because things got so bad because I wasn't drinking.
Right.
I didn't have that thing that masked everything. And then once that flushed out of my body, I was left with myself. And I was like, oh, fuck. This sucks. The man in the mirror is a problem.
Right.
Putting in your body.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now we're the problem. So we're coming to the end here, but
sucks.
we're coming towards the end here, but I do want to hear about, when did you first? I feel like you seem like a guy that started probably drinking or drugging young. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't consistent, but I had my first drink in I think like like fifth grade. My grandparents had beer in the garage and they were having beer. I was like, can I have one? They're like, sure. And I just had like a honey brown lager with some pretzel sticks. And I would like drink but I didn't like the taste. So I like didn't even drink all of it. And I don't even remember getting a feeling, but in seventh grade, I remember getting like drunk and I was like, I want to feel this way forever. And then in eighth grade, I got drunk on my birthday and I went home and tried to fight my stepdad. And I was like, this is not good. And like freshman year of high school, I got so drunk at a party, I faked being sick for the week because I was like so embarrassed to see everyone at school, Like it was just like immediately just like bad. But addicted to everything, like smoking. I started smoking in like sixth grade and then stopped, and then eighth grade stopped, freshman year stopped. And I didn't smoke again until I was like 21. And then now it's like nonstop. But even like masturbation, I was addicted to when I was younger, because that was the thing that took me out of myself. That was the thing that I got like a relief. And in a way, I'm like grateful that I just did that instead of finding that relief in alcohol until later, because I feel like that would have opened the door to me doing other things. And I would have been way more susceptible to being like, yeah, I'll try heroin. Why not?
Right.
So like masturbation was like the first thing I really got addicted to, where when something was going wrong, I didn't feel okay. It was like, well, here's a thing that can make me feel all right, And that's something that I don't really talk a lot about, because I think that's like jarring to hear. But I think a lot of people can relate to just wanting to get outside yourself. And it's like a homegrown high, But also we were like choking ourselves in like sixth grade to try to get high too. It's like, did you ever do that? The fucking choke thing where you like lose your air?
People did. I never did it. I was a big pussy. I think Sarah did. I'm looking over here like she's there. She's not. But I think Sarah did that. She talked about they all did that, would knock each other out and stuff. And she also roofied herself. So she's just a big fucking lunatic.
That's great.
It's always fun when you start dating someone. She's like, yeah, I used to take Rufinol or whatever. And you're like, what's that?
Cryohypnol. Like,
yeah.
Come again?
You're like, great. That's great. That's really neat. But no, so I never did that, but I was afraid. I mean, that's why I started drinking late, because I was afraid of all this shit. I was a big pussy. I was like, drinking, what are you insane? That's crazy. And choking yourselves and all that stuff. But masturbation, I definitely relate to. And I still feel that way now when I get like really angry or something happens or I see somebody did something. My first thought is to be like, let me go jerk off.
Yeah.
And I don't always follow up on it, but like that was always how I felt, was like,
totally,
I gotta go. And like when I went through like breakups, I jerk off like 7 times a day just because I'm like, I would be so angry that I'm like, let me just put myself in this other alternative. It's just, I mean, masturbation basically is just an alternative world, essentially, for that whatever few minutes.
Totally. Yeah. And what fucked me up too is, I talked about being Catholic. I had so much guilt that for the first like couple years I was masturbating, I was praying for forgiveness while I was doing it, because I was told that when someone dies, they're with you all the time. So I thought my father was like watching, and I had to be like, I'm sorry, Dad, and that just totally fucked me up, like with what I was thinking about or looking at, but at the same time, I was willing to go through that pain of that because the relief was worth it to get outside myself,
Right.
So I think that set the stage for me being like, oh, I'll black out and I'll wake up on the street in a pile of trash. My shit's gone. I'm bleeding, but it was worth it because I got outside myself,
Right.
It was worth it because I didn't have to feel,
Yeah, that was an amazing thing with drinking for me, is like, and so many people talk about it, like that first drink, you're like, oh, I got it. I see. This makes sense. Like it was like
flushes
fucking
over your body.
Yeah, exactly. Like clouds parted, and I'm like, this is it. And then I had that thing immediately where I identify with like I was a Tom Waits song or something. I was like, I'll be the drunk guy. I'm at the bar. You don't know me, man. I'm I'm deep. And then you identify with that.
I thought I was Russ Cole from True Detective.
Right.
That's who I thought I was. I thought I was Russ Cole, and like a Three Dog Night song come together.
Yeah.
I just thought that I was like a Marshall Tucker Band song come to life. That's who I thought I was, and I was not. I was a fucking mess that wanted to be around.
You look back and you're like, oh, you can romanticize all those ideas of drinking and being this thing, but you're like, it's miserable. I was miserable. Yeah. They're miserable. You feel fucking fat. You don't actually sleep well. Your relationships are shit.
And also sober, I can romanticize pain, and I can romanticize being the struggle guy or the guy that just can't get love right. The guy that always has it and fucks it up. Like I can romanticize anything that's negative, and I really have to work my fucking dick off to romanticize getting to the other side of it. Like I'm incredibly positive, and I really try to be, upbeat and everything. But once I shut my front door, it's like I hang all that stuff up, and I'm like, okay, now I can really just fucking be the downer I was always meant to be,
Yeah, no, I had that. And that was a big moment in my life that came with early sobriety. Was in our business in comedy, I was so connected and identified with like this loser, this lovable loser. I got edited off of Last Comic Standing. I never got new faces at Just for Laughs, and then eventually I did way later, but then I bombed, and it was I couldn't get a manager, and I couldn't get a late night, and that was like my thing. I've just been featuring for too long, and I'm down. Don't even tell me your problems because I have it the worst. And then I got sober, and I was like, hey, a lot of these things I want, I never even tried for. Why don't I just try to do that? And then I was like, that classic like alcoholic thing, I was like, I can't even get a late night set. And then I literally got sober and was like, I have actually made literally zero effort to be on any TV. I've never submitted a tape. Like, it's not like they were like, no, fuck you. I wanted them to come to my house and be like, hey, hi, I'm Dave Letterman, and I'd like you to come do my show.
Yeah, and if you never try, you're not a failure.
Right. And that's part of why I identify with that. So it had to be this new thing of like a new identification. I still struggle not to do it again now, to fall back into that of like, no, I can succeed. I'm good. I'm funny. I work hard.
Totally. And I think that really comes with like self-talk. Like I was talking to my sponsor, he's like, every time you have a negative thought, I want you to say you love yourself. And I'm like, no, you're fucking gay, dude. I'm not doing that. And, like talking to myself as a friend is something that sometimes I'll get in the mode of it and it really helps. Or like being the friend to that child that could never have someone there for him. I took a group talk to your inner child, like therapy session with two friends. And I had to get up and leave. Like I couldn't even verbalize what I was just like, I like it couldn't even come out of my body, me talking to that kid, because I never saw that hurt little kid. And when I look at him and I see him and I want to hug him and I want to be there for him, that helps me to be there for myself, to go, no, you do deserve good things. You do deserve things. And it's not a feeling of like, I deserve because, like it's not like I don't think it's a, selfish thing or like privilege thing of like, I deserve the world, or like, things should be handed to me. But it's like, no, you deserve to feel good. You deserve to feel wanted and loved, and you deserve to take care of yourself in a way that makes you feel better so that you can be available to take care of others.
Yeah, hell yeah. No, and I've been working on the same thing. I mean, for years, and still trying to work on it. That self-sympathy and sympathy for us when we were younger or whatever. And now it's interesting because I have a nephew who's 12 and he has all the same anxiety and tics that I have. And, and it's like, it is like looking at myself and to be like, oh, it allows me to be like, oh, this is not my fault. And none of this stuff is our fault. We're doing the best with the brains we have and the environment that we grew up in. It's not like, people that we perceive as doing better than us are better than us. They have different brains and different elements working in their favor. They grew up in different areas where whatever it is with different people. So we're doing our best with the hand we have been dealt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's also giving yourself credit for that and not living in the negative of like, I was dealt a bad hand. It's like, all right, fucking play the cards and it's like poker. Just keep it moving. You can't get upset or obsess over your last hand. You can't worry about your next. You just got to play the hand that you have. And I try to, and some days I'm really fucking good at it. Sometimes I'm on a streak of being like, man, not that you're great, like in a grandiose way, but like you're doing good, man. You're doing good, buddy. Hey, pal, you're feeling good. You're doing great. But then, like it'll be like good days and then bad weeks.
Right.
So it's trying to like balance that out. And I was talking to a friend. He's like, how long have you been in therapy? I was like, 5 years. He's like, man, you got to get rid of your therapy. Doesn't work. And I'm like, no, it's like a thing that you do for a while. But I also just fired my therapist. So, I need to get a new one. But that's neither here nor there,
Yeah, this is a good time to find a new therapist. They're all wide open.
I know. They're all looking for work. She was trying to, jock me on some shit of like, you need an all-day workshop that my friend, who if you knew who she was, you would sign up immediately. But it's $200, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I really think that it would just put you to a new level. I'm like, I don't need this fucking friendship Ponzi scheme. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It's hard when doctors all start doing that. They're like, you got to see this other guy.
Yeah.
But still see me also.
Yeah.
There's another guy that he'll. But anywho, we gotta wrap this up. But man, this was like a tremendous conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. To me, it was tremendous. It did a lot for me.
Me as well. I loved it, man. It was a great way to kick off the day. I'm so glad we did it early-ish in the morning. And I always love talking to you, man. This is just such a nice talk. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. And it was great. And thanks for being so forthcoming and open and honest. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it, hopefully.
Great. I hope so. Yeah, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian.
Mindful Metal Jacket is hosted by comedian Joe List. Produced by Joe List. Edited by Matt Kleinschmidt. Executive producers Robert Kelly and Matt Kleinschmidt for the Laugh Button Podcasts.